Hello, welcome to Level Change. My name is Claudio Fonseca. I'm a real 777 pilot, and today we are going to talk about the pre-flight from the captain perspective. On the previous video, we covered the actions for the first officer, and then on this flight we are going to cover the actions for the captain, the pilot that is seated on the left side. A couple of things we already covered on the video about the first officer, so this time I'm not going to explain in details the selections related to the Efis control panel, also to the oxygen tests and the flight instruments. If you want more information about these three items, please go back to the previous video, because the actions for those parts are the same for the captain and for the first officer. You already know I always bring a document that you can follow through this video, and then later on when you are flying on your sim. And the document today is the pre-flight procedure by the captain. As you can see here, we are still talking about pre-flight, but today about the captain, and these are the actions for the captain itself. Okay, so let's go to our airplane one more time, and today we talk about captain side, the left side. I'm going to use the automated voice, and I'm going to complete the procedure as the automated voice describes it. Okay, so let's start.
Pre-flight procedure, Captain. EFIS control panel. Set. Minimums reference selector. As needed. Minimum selector. As needed. Flight path vector switch. As needed. Meters switch. As needed. Barometric reference selector. As needed. Barometric selector. Set local altimeter setting. VOR and ADF switches. As needed. Navigation display mode selector. Map. Navigation display center switch. As needed. Navigation display range selector. As needed. Navigation display traffic switch. On. Weather radar switch. Off. Verify that the weather radar indications are not shown on the ND. Map switches. As needed. Mode control panel. Set. Flight director switch. On. Auto throttle arm switches. Arm. Autopilot disengage bar. Up. Heading or track reference switch. As needed. Bank limit selector. Auto. Vertical speed or flight path angle reference switch. As needed. Altitude increment selector. As needed.
Okay guys, so here we finish the mode control panel, the MCP. I want to talk a couple of things about the MCP. So what we cover on the procedure are the minimum selections that the captain has to do and has to check during the pre-flight. Note that at any point we are talking about the windows selections, about the speed or about the heading or about the altitude. Of course, it does not preclude the captain from selecting those values if he already knows. Most probably at this time, in a real life environment, there will be no V2 to select at this point, because we still don't know the exact weight of the airplane, and we still have to calculate the performance for the final weight that we are going to have. However, usually you already set the FMC at this point, so most probably you know the runway in use. Of course, the runway can change later on, but if you already know the runway in use or the runway that you are working initially, like in this case, if we come here and we go to the legs page, we are going to see that we are going to depart, on the route from runway 10 left, and then on the legs page, initial heading is 094. So yes, you can come here and select your initial heading as 094. This is not mandatory. It's something that we are going to do and check later on at least 2 times, but if you already know you can do it. Okay, so note, for example, for the heading, what the procedure says is that we have to choose the selection that we want between heading or track, and also verify that the bank limit is in the auto position. Okay, here you can change from 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, and the last selection to the left is auto. You want to make sure that this is in auto. For the vertical speed and flight path angle, one more time, you just select the reference that you want, usually we depart in vertical speed. And for the altitude also, you want to make sure that selection is in auto or 1000, depending on the situation. Usually I prefer to depart with the selection in auto, because if I have any altitude that is not thousands, I will have the option to select. For example, let's say that the ATC tell me to climb to 8500 in the auto mode. I can come here and select 8500. Of course, if I'm in the 1000, I can only select 8000 or 9000, or in this case 10,000. Okay, so I usually prefer to depart with auto. Once I start climbing to higher levels, then I change it to thousands, because I'm pretty sure ATC is not going to tell me any altitude between flight levels. Okay, so usually I depart in auto, but you can do at your convenience. Okay, and even if you're flying, there is no harm to change to 1000 back to auto, as you need to control this window. Also have in mind that it doesn't mention for us, one more time, to select the altitude itself. But if you already have that altitude, like in this case, by the procedure is flight level 100 or below, you can come here and select, in this case, flight level 100. Later on, if the ATC changes this, you come back here and you change. And even later on, if you change the departure, if you change the runway, you can redo these selections. So it's not mandatory for you to make these selections right now, but if you want, as you are checking the MCP, there is no problem. And I can tell you that in real life, most of the pilots, they do it. Okay, by experience, they already know the runway that they are going to use, or the runway that is planned on the FMC, so they can set the runway heading and also the initial altitude clearance. Okay, this is very, very common. Okay, so let's continue with the procedure.
Oxygen. Test and set. Forward panel brightness controls. Mid position. Instrument source select panel. Set. Navigation source switch off. Display control source switch. Off. Air data and attitude source switch. Off. Inboard display selector. MFD. Heading reference switch. Normal. Flight instruments. Check. Verify that the flight instrument indications are correct. Verify that only these flags are shown. TCAS off, and no V-speed until takeoff V-speeds are selected. Verify that the flight mode enunciations are correct. Auto throttle mode is blank, and roll mode is toga, and pitch mode is toga, and AFDS status is flight director. Integrated standby flight display. Set. Verify that the approach mode display is blank. Set local altimeter setting. Verify that the flight instrument indications are correct. Verify that no flags or messages are shown. Alternate pitch trim levers. Neutral. Speed brake lever. Down. Reverse thrust levers. Down. Forward thrust levers. Closed. Flap lever. Set. Set the flap lever to agree with the flap position. The flap position indicator does not show when the flaps are up. Parking brake. Set. Verify that the memo parking brake set message is shown. Stabilizer cutout switches. Guards closed. Fuel control switches. Cut off. Verify that the fuel control switch fire warning lights are extinguished. Alternate flaps panel. Set. Alternate flaps arm switch. Off. Alternate flaps selector. Off. Captain audio control panel. As needed. Seat, rudder pedals, seat belt and shoulder harness. Adjust.
Okay guys, so this is the pre-flight for the captain. As you can notice, is very short compared to the first officer. One more time, if you want more information about the Efis control panel, about the flight instrument and about the oxygen check that you can do on PMDG, go ahead and come back to the previous video, pre-flight for the first officer. I explain in details all these three areas. Today we talk about the MCP because this is a big and important part for the captain, okay? And always make sure that when you are dealing with the parking brake, the messages related to the parking brake are in agreement with what you want, okay? So to make sure that the parking brake is set, you need to see this message, not only see the lever here up, okay? And that's it. So usually when the captain finish his pre-flight items, he's going to verify if the first officer finished his items as well. And of course, in the cabin environment, when you have two people there, sorry, in the cockpit environment, when you have two people there, it's really easy to notice what is your colleague doing, okay? So when the captain noticed that the first officer finished his pre-flight, he's going to ask for the pre-flight checklist itself, which is the subject for our next video, okay? So stay tuned. The next video we are going to talk about the pre-flight checklist and the nuances about the checklist itself, especially related to this phase of the flight. If you like, give us the thumbs up, share this with your friends, and I see you next video. Bye bye.